Folks, welcome inside the Parisi Palace, high above 3733 East Broadway. This is a live edition of the Jake Feinberg Show. Coming to you on Power Talk. Please go to our website, powertalk.live. Download our free app and stream all of our live local programming, including Solomon on Blast, the Jim Parisi Show, and yours truly, the Jake Feinberg Show. And we can't thank you enough for making us part of your day today. And as we continue to stretch the lineage of music going back as many years as half a century, it's so wonderful to be able to talk to cats from all different parts of the country who were really raised with regional music, regional hotbeds of music with their own authentic rhythms, coming from their own authentic people who came there from a variety of different ways via diaspora. And this cat, we've been friends on new media for quite some time, and he's had a decorated career, a natural player. Did not learn within the four walls of academia, but wound up playing with so many luminary characters, including Bobby Williams and Eddie Bowe, Johnny Adams, James Rivers, Isaac Hayes, and Aaron Neville and the Neville brothers. He's a bass player and a singer. Just a fine individual. Paul Boudreaux, welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show.
Hey.
Hey. How you doing, brother? How's it going down there?
Oh, just hot, man. Summertime in New Orleans is brutal.
Well, I'll wager you that, Tucson can compete with you in a big way, brother. You know, we're cooking the groove at about 90 degrees at 6 a.m. So we're up in the ones.
Oh, Arizona, jeez, I can't compare to that.
It just seems like that the gumbo, the humidity down there is a little bit different. This is dry heat, but it still cooks, and so
yeah.
It's hard to do yard work. It's hard to meditate outside. It's hard to do anything really until sun goes down. And we're now dealing with severe climate change. I'll go on the record right now and say that I don't like to say this, but I just have a feeling that we're going to have in this country a devastating loss of land via climate change within our lifetime.
I think so.
Within our lifetimes,
yeah.
You already.
It's evident. It's evident, man. It's evident. It's happening. You got land corrosion right now in Louisiana. Some parts of the bottom of Louisiana just ain't there no more.
Exactly. No, and
corroded.
We're talking about. I'm talking about, you see these sinkholes in Florida, and I just see that, I just see myself a whole chunk of land with millions of people just falling right off. Anyway, it's kind of, it's the way it is. That's the point. I wanted you to talk about when you were first coming up, because we are really at a point now in the United States where we are consistently pushing back against true nature, against Mother Nature, against true nature. Against what is just going in the line of what Mother Nature says, not just, in the weather component, but you look at all these things, the way we're changing, diversifying, we look different, we sound different, we are different. You know this from being in New Orleans. It's one of the last regional hotbeds. But then when you talk about it from the music point of view, now you have everything. You can get it down to the 0.1%. You can get everything perfect via technology and computers and digitization. And I just wanted you to talk a little bit about when you started to when you picked up the bass, how natural, not necessarily how it felt, but the music itself, when you got into playing with other people, how you were really, if you felt like you were channeling nature at that point.
Yeah. When being raised in New Orleans around music all the time, I guess it was in me all the time, but, I didn't realize until I got to Germany when I bought a bass guitar, and when I bought that guitar, I plugged it up, and the power of hearing me play a note, and it gave me a sense of I'm part of what I've been hearing on radio, like all the hit records, all the good stuff, all the good vibes coming out of New Orleans. It gave me a sense that I was a purpose now, I can do this now, and it gives me a sense that I am part of the future now. You see?
Yeah, I dig.
I can take it to the next level. You see, like I heard the old guys, the guys earlier. So now I'm in it. I picked up the bass. I was 21 years old. When I first picked the bass up, and that like, man, I had power.
This is interesting because I love your generation. I mean, I'm 39, and my generation and younger generations, you probably hear this with younger cats too. He's better than this guy. He's better than this guy, based on technical chops, based on feel.
Feel.
I'm sorry. Let's be clear. Younger cats are, talking about chops and facility, and that's what determines what if they consider if someone's a superior musician, when it's about feel. And I just want you to riff.
Right.
I want you to riff on feel, because I don't care if it's Chuck Rainey or whether it's Wilton Felder, or I've interviewed all the cats, and now I get to interview you, and I want you to talk about, truthfully, feel, because everybody has the same 12 notes to play with. It's what you do with the notes and how you feel the note. All right, so I want you to just riff on that, please.
That's probably why I was able to do sessions with Eddie Bo, because Eddie Bo heard me play live, and the first thing he said was, "Hey man, you got a great feel, for this music, And I was able to do sessions, as a beginner bass player, I was doing like sessions, but because of the feel, as opposed to chops, I met guys, man, through my travels, guys who can read charts from around the corner. They can read charts with one eye, upside down. They can read charts. And when you take the charts away from them, they can't play music, because they're looking at digits. They see music as digits and dots and flags and codas, and I don't see music like that, I hear music and I feel music first, and when you play in the band with other guys, if there's one or two guys in the band that don't have the right feel, they can bring that band down to an amateur level. It'll never sound complete if everybody in that band don't have, especially in the rhythm section. You might get by with a horn if you're playing horn parts and not soloing, but if you're in the rhythm section and you don't have a good feel, it'll come. That band will not be at its best.
Was it
feel
just
is everything?
Yeah. Well, do you feel some? Is the saturation of material that's available today for peeps to check out, is it too much? So then their head's too full of, I'm not saying that there's the Paul Boudreaux songbook, and there's you get you got so much material now via YouTube and stuff out there. When with you guys, you basically listen to a radio track, you didn't have a chance to rewind it. You had to listen to it, and then you had to figure it out yourself. Do you think
you can't? Yeah. Right, you can't see videos.
Can you talk about? I think also what's really important is that even the generation that preceded you, or a little bit before you, and I'm talking about the studio musicians in New York, guys that preceded Chuck Rainey and Bernard Purdy.
Chuck Rainey.
Okay,
yeah.
But before those guys, the bass lines were very simple. All right, and then they kind of just very basic, and then all of a sudden, when you got into this sort of what you might call fusion or crossover music, the bass lines became a little bit more complex, but yet they still felt so good. Can you talk about the role?
Yeah.
Can you talk about when you got involved with cats like Bobby Williams or Eddie, Bo? Essentially not just the role of the bass, but also how it was complex, but yet still felt so. How did it still feel so good? Because now sometimes I go to see live music and I watch a bass player or anybody in there, and their facility's great, but I wind up staring at the wall because it's just very sterile.
Yeah, compared to what we had to do back in the days, man, which made us a little more creative, because a lot of times we might misinterpret a part. You only hear it on radio, so you think, like, I think he's doing this, right? So when you do that, you have, if it's not exactly that, you have created another part, you know. So, but these guys, man, when they get on YouTube and they learn this stuff lick for lick, but there's no feel. You see, because they getting their chops together. They got guys that the man play triplets on bass, like you know, all that's fine. But when it comes down to a bass line that moves you, that's a great big difference than just a bunch of slapping notes. You see, you know. And when I was Eddie Bow, what he wanted solid stomping bass. You know, a solid bass line that repeats for a certain amount of measures, loops back, you know, elevates you, bring you down, and moves you, you know. And that's what we are. With Bobby Williams, he was that kind of drummer that had that kind of fire, you see. You know, and it was three-piece band, man, three-piece. Lewis Clark, Bobby Williams, and Paul Boudreaux. That was Eddie Bow's rhythm section. You know, Eddie played piano on the sessions. And a lot of times we were getting there, man, and you know, he just said, "Look, I got an idea for a song," you know, but he depended on us to really put the meat to the song. You know, he might say, "Give me something funky in G," you know. So we play what we do.
I just love this. Talking to Paul Boudreaux on fire already. I mean, this is a deep. So I mean, because Earl Palmer, another New Orleans cat who eventually went out to, you know, to be the studio cat drummer in L.A.
Yeah.
When he first got out there, you just nailed it. They said the same thing. Hal Blaine, Earl was one of his mentors. I mean, it would be like, they'd be like, you know, play a rock groove, play something like that, like a rock groove. There was no charts. It was all feel.
It's not written, right?
Yeah,
right.
It was all feel.
Yeah.
And that goes. And this is where I want to transport. I want to promote this as best you can, being somebody who has been in the bastion of the Bayou in New Orleans. How much is because when cats go to, when I talk to some cats who, you know, jazzers, for instance, who went on world tours, you know, with Benny Carter or, you know, could be Dizzy or anybody, you know, when they would go to the motherland of Africa or the surrounding countries around, like Egypt, there was none of the music was notated. It was all passed down from teacher to student. And can you talk about how absolutely, what's the right word I'm looking for? That is part of African American music, and I want you to talk about that as it relates to your people, the music of New Orleans, and ultimately the music that goes back to the motherland. The idea of saying, let's not notate everything. It's you know, because the Europeans couldn't figure it out. They couldn't figure the music out, so then they notated it. But it was always just about it was a call and response, and I really just want you. This is what my show's been about, and I just want you to riff on that.
Wow, man. You know that's really something, man. Because you know, I was raised on a street called LaSalle Street, which was where the Dewdrop Inn was.
How do you spell that? How do you spell that word? How do you spell that name?
Dewdrop.
No. The road you were on.
Oh, LaSalle Street.
LaSalle.
LaSalle. LaSalle. You know, and on that street it was a big wide street. So you had parades passing there all the time. You had the Mardi Gras Indians all the time. You had second line bands. You know, so as a kid, all I heard was just rhythm, just that New Orleans rhythm, man. You know, and that was straight from the African drum, from Congo Square. You see, like it was like unbelievable, man. Like how much we heard that as children being raised in New Orleans. You know, especially uptown New Orleans. You know, because if somebody died, that was a jazz funeral. So that was a parade. That was music. You know, the Mardi Gras Indians, they had guys playing tamarines. They were tapping on beer cans and a Coke bottle, a piece of iron, or a cowbell, all rhythms. And those rhythms was from Africa, you know. So
how did you incorporate? Well, I guess I also want to know, as you were a kid, how much were you I mean, how much did your family infuse in you about the roots and the history? I mean, literally, the trap set was created in Congo Square. You know, it was a combination of all these.
Right.
You know, I mean, like I've done my woodshedding for a while here. You know, I mean, like
Man,
Bill Summers. You know,
yeah,
Bill
you're
Summers
right.
broke it all down for me, man. Like, you know, I mean, it's like
Yes,
you
yes,
put
Congo
together.
Square.
You know, you put together these things, and then all of a sudden it became a trap set. But really, it was like, you know, you'd go. And on the weekends, the slave owners would allow the cats to play, and then all of a
They
sudden,
would allow the Congo Square to play, right?
you know,
Every Sunday, yeah.
right, and then all of a sudden there was this siren that meant, no, you better be getting back to your land or to your you know, whatever it was.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
how much were you aware that as a kid? Obviously, you were seeing these cats, you know, in serious garb and attire. You were seeing them playing all sorts of different rhythms, because we know that the rhythms of Africa, they're different in almost every part of the continent. And so, I mean, how much was it just in your face, and how much education did you get from your parents about where you actually came from? My whole point here is that if you don't know where you came from, there's no way to know where you're going. And that's part of it. Okay.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I just want to know about how much you were steeped with that.
You know.
Yeah.
Okay. My mother was raised on a plantation. You know, in Lavendaville, Napoleonville, Louisiana. You know, and she said like a long time ago, some of the Indians in that area, right? The Indians would protect the runaway slaves. You know, they would take them in, and you know, and they would disguise them as the Indian. You know, and protect them. You know, and right there, she told us how we had some cousin who was actually like half-breed Indians, because of some of our ancestors ran away, you know, and got with the Indians, you know.
No, this is exactly. Continue. And this is amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. And those, she said, and those guys used to come, you know, like those family members used to come back with tamarines and drums that they get from the Indians, you know. And they would, and she said, as kids, they would beat on the drums and they would sing like old hymns and stuff, you know. I said, "Wow, Mom, you know." I said, "That's fascinating." I said, "I didn't know you were a musician."
Hold on, this is so important. These are the kinds of stories that I want the world to hear and see. So I just want to be clear: your mother's, somebody from your mother's family, connected with the Indians. They had a kid. Or who was the kid? By the way, I mean, and then ultimately they were getting tambourines and things like that from the Native Americans.
Yeah, they were getting right. Yeah. You know, and also like you know, we had people. Some slaves had the African. You know, I mean, just like way back, man. You know, like I mean, they wasn't too far from the ship. You know.
Right.
You know,
no, the lineage was right there.
You know, it's so crazy, man. It's not that long ago. You know, if you look at it, it's not that long ago. You see, you know, and it was fascinating, man, that they were able to like intertwine with the Indians. You know. I never knew the person's name, but she said like some of our people, you know, ran away from from the slave camp. And they was able to hang out with the Indians, you know, and learn some of their stuff. And when some of them came back, and after it was free, they came back, you know, and they would bring like some Indian culture, you know, back into the African culture, you know. And it was all about rhythm, you know. Indians didn't really play instruments, you know, except maybe a flute, but it was all about rhythm, you know. And with the Indian beat and the African beat, man, you know. I guess it bled over to New Orleans, because Mardi Gras, all you hear, man, is just rhythm and call and response. You know, you sing a line and the group will answer you. You know, matter of fact, the first song I recorded was called Boogaloo Mardi Gras, and it was a call and response. You know, I'll sing a lead on that song, you know. And
Well,
that's a
yeah, no,
song
let's just you just teed it up. Let's take a listen to it, and then we'll come back and talk about it. Is the Bobby Williams group, Boogaloo Mardi Gras?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, let's take a listen to it, and then we can. Yeah.
Okay.
All
Good.
right. Let's take a listen. Here we go. Bobby Williams, Boogaloo Mardi Gras Part 1, 1965. Now, you're singing on that? Is that you singing?
Yeah.
That is so. You can hear the African call and response, and then there's definitely
Man.
But I want you to talk
The
about
Indian.
Yeah, talk about it.
Hear the Indian. Hear the Indian licks. All the Indian rhythm and African rhythm intertwined. All that came from, man, like hearing those songs around carnival time when the Indians would sing those call and response songs. So what I did, I just fed from that, man. Matter of fact, that was the first record recorded in New Orleans with the call and response Indian song. Later on, the Wild Magnolias did something like in the 70s, but that was done like in around 69, something like that.
Can you explain how? Could you take us through the process of how this record actually got put on, got recorded? I mean, it had nothing to do with like C-Sane or Toussaint or anything like that. How did that get recorded?
Yeah. What happened? That song was our warm up song. When we set our amps up, our microphone. The first one we played always was that song, without the singing, like just that groove, to get us warm up, because Bobby loved to solo, on the drums, right? So we would do that song first to get the crowd fired up, man, and Eddie Bo happened to be at the bar that day. The club was called the Shallow Lane Bar, and we played there on Sundays, like about 2 o'clock, maybe 2 to 6, something like that. And Eddie Bo would come in, and he heard that, man, and he said, "Man, would you guys want to record that?" And man, what? We're gonna be on a record, So we was all excited, man, So in a couple of days, Eddie Bo set it up and said we're gonna record at Cosmo Studio, the world famous Cosmo Studio.
Wow. The name of the bar was Shadowland?
Yeah, the Shadowland, like shadow.
Shadowlands. Wow. And so so Eddie, I mean, you got to hit me to this cat. He's not been on my radar He obviously was a major dude before all the. I mean, what is his legacy to American roots music?
He wrote some hits, man. The song the Etta James sang. All I Need Is Someone Like You.
Yes, yes.
He wrote that song, and one of the songs he did, like "Tell Her Like It Is." Slipping and Sliding.
Okay, I'm looking here. Eddie Bow, 1968. Etta James, My Dearest Darling.
That's it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. So
that was a major song for him.
And did Etta come down to Cosmo's studio? I mean, so he had his own studio down there. How did he? Yeah, go ahead.
Well, at that time, the studio was Cosmo Studio. Everybody recorded there, like Ernie Cato, Dave Bartholomew, Fats Domino. Everybody recorded out of Cos.
Wow.
Now I'm not sure if Etta did her session in New Orleans. I'm not sure, but she did record that song, Etta Bow song, and it was like a major hit for her, man, And that legitimate, I mean, Etta was like a local legend, around New Orleans. He did all the local gigs and all the big shows, radio shows, stuff like that. And he had some just local hits, But that song was like a mainstream hit, for Etta James,
These cats, I mean, this is so fascinating. I mean, can you talk? I've talked to cats that clearly was there a functioning Chitlin circuit in and around the southeastern part of the United States that you went on at some point, whether with Bobby or Eddie Bow.
Joe Simon.
Joe Simon.
Yeah.
You want to talk? I want to know about these types, this Chitlin circuit, and because it was, I mean, at this time, Paul. I mean, you go out to the West Coast, and it was a guy named Charles Sullivan. He owned all the film work, Black Clubs, until it was a mob hit and he got killed. Okay, and
wow,
yeah, man. I mean, I'm digging deep. I'm going back to Johnny Talbot and the Fangs. I talked to Johnny the other day. And it's like, Dyke and the Blazers. This was all okay. This was all. This was all black economy. This was a full black. This was all. I'm just talking about California. Can you talk about that economy that existed in the Chitlin circuit that you went on with Joe Simon? What that looked like?
Yeah. Well, okay. Now we're talking about like where we went. There's all the East Coast stuff. Like South. Like from Louisiana all the way up to Chicago, and everything else on the East Coast, like New York, New England, Boston, all that, all the way down to Florida.
What were this is interesting. I've known. You're darn right about that. So the Chitlins, because the Chitlin circuit was like, Snake. There was just, you had the dances and the floorboards were coming out and the boogie woogie. But
man,
within that breadbasket, though, like the Alabamas and the Mississippis, was there a Chitlin circuit there, or did you jump over that above the Mississippi and go straight to Chicago? Was there stuff down there in the Southeast?
Yeah, well, when you get like around Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Carolina, Georgia, like that, Arkansas, that's a Chitlin circuit. That's the real southern stuff where you pull up on a dust road, man, and go way back somewhere to some little bar, man, and.
This is what I want to. This is
it's pretty rough, bro.
Oh man, I mean, I know.
But they want to see Joe Simon. They want to see Joe Simon. And these guys, these promoters, they had to book these shows because these are the folks that bought the records. They supported Joe Simon. They bought the record, man. We never did play in California, or West Coast. Although Joe spent some time in the West Coast, but we never played. We always played the Chitlin circuit, man. I mean, we were doing like one nighters every night. We out there, man, up and down the highway, man, playing these little places, and it was rough. Now some places, man, like Alabama, we ran across some real stuff where they wouldn't feed us at a truck stop, and these truck drivers, they see our bus up and down the highway, so they would know we traveling the same route they traveling. So these truckers, they heard the lady say that they're not gonna serve our kind, in the restaurant. And now this 1968,
I mean, this is important, man. This is really
in Alabama, man. And these truck drivers say, well, if you don't feed these guys have been traveling longer than we have. They're hungry. These are white truck drivers. They say, if you don't feed these guys, I'm going to get on my radio and tell every trucker, don't ever stop at this place again.
Wow.
And man,
whoa.
You talking about a big change on their faces, Wow, man. So they fed us, man. We are so proud that these guys stood up for us, But that was part of that Southern children's circuit, man. Now everywhere wasn't like that. Now,
I know. This is because everybody talks about the chitlin circuits in the upstate New York and Chicago. Again, it was different. That was that was not that was not below the Mason-Dixon line. It was different.
Right.
And
right.
It
was different.
I mean, Yusef Lateef, I just transcribed this article from just this interview that I did with Mike Knock, who's a piano player, and they were in Colorado, and in a one road town, and people were just staring at them. It was an Australian and 3 African Americans, and it was like it was not a good vibe. I mean, it started to snow.
Wow,
their car
man.
broke down.
Colorado, man. Wow.
Yeah, but you look at it now, and it's like different time. But could you say that when you were on these? Obviously, you were singing for your supper, and you were playing great soul music and R&B with Joe Simon, and all that stuff. But was it an emboldening experience for you to see your own people and say, hey, listen, this is scary for us too, but we're just going to keep moving forward, playing this music and trying to shift consciousness? Was that part of the social consciousness movement?
That was the whole thing, man. The whole thing was we got to get this music out of here, we got to keep doing what we're doing. Although it was scary times sometime on the highway, but we had to keep doing what we had to do, man. Because I mean, the song that Joe Simon recorded back in the day was very important to American music because he was a major soul singer of that time. You see, so we had to keep going on with what we do, man. And our goal was to produce music and keep it going and keep the thing happening because we couldn't give up. I mean they just couldn't. The way society was going at the time, we couldn't let fear stop us from traveling and keep going. Although it was rough traveling at that time, But
did you ever feel like there was a point where, or an experience that you could share where you felt like where your life might be in danger?
Oh yeah. A few times, not too many, but a few times it got pretty rough, where we woke up one morning and we found some stickers on our trailer, all over the trailer, in our van, saying we are watching you, that kind of stuff, and that kind of look, man, it was kind of scary. Let's do the gig and get out this town, and go to the next one, Well, although we did notify our local sheriff that it happened, and they came out and looked at it and said don't worry, so they protected us, They put extra guys around our hotel that night, made sure nothing happened, So it wasn't everybody, man. That acts out there, man, that really supported Joe Simon and they understood the music, they loved the music, but right now, man, just a handful of people feel certain ways, It's not everybody,
No, I mean, I wonder. Yeah, I know because I talked to. Do you know who Papa Molly is?
Yeah, I sure do. Yeah,
Okay, so he was in a band called the Killer Bees, and this was with Michael Johnson, who was a Vietnam War veteran, and Papa was the only white cat in the band. This is like 1980, and it's a long.
Yeah.
It's. I'm not going to go into the whole story, but the point is they were driving on this highway in Louisiana, going from going to a gig. They were going from a gig. They were going to their gig, and they saw like one of these Klan bookstores on the side of the road, piping propaganda, and they kind of yelled at him, was sort of catcalling him, and then so they finished their gig somewhere, and they're driving home at very late at night, and all of a sudden these guys in paramilitary gear pull them over on the side of the road, and they have them all lay down on the side of the road, and it's an inspirational story because Michael Johnson, who's a Purple Heart recipient in Vietnam, they all had him down on the road, and they identified themselves as Klan. This is 1980. Okay, it's like not that. That's not that long ago, and
not long ago, man.
Slowly, I mean, again, it was 3, 4 in the morning. So on this highway, there just wasn't a lot of traffic at that time. But every time a car sped by, Michael kept inching closer and closer to the highway, and then at one point, when they heard a car coming, he actually rolled out into the middle of the road, and the car had to spin off on the side and go into, sort of off onto the side of the road. And, and it stopped, and he stopped, and he was kind of spooked, obviously, but it did its purpose in the sense that the Klan got spooked, and they jumped back in their cars, and they took off. Long story short.
Oh, man.
Yeah, well, I mean, they were they were freaked out. They wound up getting to the next truck stop. They called the FBI. They probably were on the phone for an hour trying to get a hold of somebody. But when they did, they were like, we're aware of Klan activity down in that area. In fact, there have been a lot of situations where people have just, in that exact stretch of highway, have just disappeared. So you're very, so that's what I'm talking about is like, this to me is almost, I mean, you see this, but you know what, Paul? Nothing has changed. It's just that we now have technology to show this stuff in real time, right? I mean, has anything
real time,
right?
Yeah.
I mean, has anything? Have we really? I'm asking you as somebody who's been on the earth a lot longer than I have, and then quite frankly learned from the masters. I mean, do you feel like we've made progress, or have we actually have we just kind of stopped, or at this point? Because
no,
go ahead.
We made progress. I mean, there's like I said, there's a handful of that kind of activity, still going on. But like you say, it was under the radar back then. But now with so much social media, and I mean, they got news like on TV 24/7. So they they kind of like watchdogs for everything. So and report everything. So so as a people, we've come a long way. We came a long way as a people. But
could you talk specifically about the progress your people have made? This is important.
Well,
because you know what it is, Paul. You know what it is. What it is this: is like, I get that. What I didn't articulate it very well. Yes, this stuff can be caught in real time. The problem is, some dude gets blown away by a cop in Minnesota, and he doesn't. And there's no justice. You understand what I'm saying? Maybe the actual incident is picked up on social media and it gets a lot of legs, but there still is no justice. Okay, the justice component.
That part there, yeah.
So, but I want to know. Give me a couple of things where the trucker story to me is these were white truckers who said these cats have been driving all night. You better feed them, or we're going to tell everybody not to come here anymore. So that is inspiring.
They So they stood up for us, man. Yeah.
So, in what ways can you quantitatively say that your people have made real progress?
Well, coming from where I came from in the '60s, when it wasn't much a black man could do, other than like play music, work for somebody. And but we're pointing out where education is open for everybody. The music industry is open for everybody. There's really no boundaries. I mean, you can do what you want to do in the music business. After you to be successful. How much you want to put your time in it. So if you want to waste time being prejudiced and share this stuff, like you can do that, waste your time, or you can be productive and do as much right as you can, for your brother, whether it be black or white, whatever, and treat everybody the same, and I know as a people, we've come a long way, in businesses. We own businesses and we're educated.
I will say this. I will say that I don't know if you ever cross paths with Ndugu Chancellor, the drummer. He played with
no
heavy jazz drummer, but also played on Michael Jackson's famous albums, like heavy studio cat in L.A. But he's French Creole from New Orleans, and I just met him in person for the first time after doing a couple interviews with him and out in California. And he talked about how his dad had a successful business, but then eventually he was run out of town by the white people, and so they had to move to Los Angeles. So I mean,
yeah.
Economically, there's more there's more upward mobility, in that sense. Do you still feel? I mean, you guys, you and Porter, No Santelli, the Nevilles, the list goes on and on and on. You guys are the Graybeards. Can you talk about this newer generation, my generation of people and if the lineage of the music in your mind is still as strong, do the cats understand about the black Native American pride and the culture? Are they curious enough to go back and want to learn about rhythm, or have they been sucked into the digitization of music where they're just sampling beats and doing things just because of the convenience and because of the cost effectiveness of it?
Well, in New Orleans, the guys that come to New Orleans, whether they come down for the music or come down to college, to our universities, and they go out and they hear our music, they hear our music, and they hear what New Orleans is about, and you hear these guys are more into getting it right. They're not worried about the new beats. They want to play the funk that they hear in New Orleans. And they imitate my bass lines off of Eddie Bo stuff, hook and slang, and the bucket. Check your bucket. They imitate those bass lines, man. And these new kids are really into. Now I'm speaking about New Orleans now, because there's other kids out there playing music, man, that I have no idea where they're going with it, because it has no substance. It just, I don't know, man.
No, so these cats, are they those cats that you're playing with that have no substance? Is because they are not they're not tapping into the New Orleans music?
They're not tapping into it and understanding it, not understanding where it comes from. Like you said earlier, you say you got to know where you come from to know where you're going.
Right.
These guys, if you come down here, learn where does music come from? Where does this funk come from? Where does this jazz come from?
Right.
Where does this blues come from? Stevie Ray Vaughan did it well. He started playing guitar. He went straight to Albert King.
Right.
Albert Collins, B.B. King. He learned from. He said, well, if I'm going to play blues, I got to learn from the best blues guys around. And he did that and became one of the best guitar players, of our time. One of them, because he did his homework and he researched where it came from. and right now, man, they got a lot of bands in New Orleans. Like these kids are really playing well. They're playing very well. They're playing funk. They understand where it comes from. They're into it. They even taking it to the next level. You know. And there's a lot of young bands down here, man. That sound really, really good, really great, because they understand the music and they want to learn about the rhythm of New Orleans and the bass lines and the piano parts and the horn parts. Look at a trombone shorty, man. You know.
Sure.
Everything
No, I mean this is so important. This is
old school stuff. You know.
Yeah, I mean, is it? And what about? You know. Could you just talk a little bit about, is it more about their, like the licks that they're playing so you can hear that they are going back to the lineage, or is it about like what we started opening about, which is just sort of like this, the indigenous feel of it, and they're not all hyped up on perfection? I mean, is it a combination of both? Is it, how can you tell that they are, and that, I mean, because let's face it, I mean, so many cats that I talk to, they learned organic. They a lot of this stuff they can't even explain why they did it. You know, like I mean, sometimes it's just totally a spirit. It's just it's built into you. So I mean, so how do you know? I mean, is it the old school? You know, are they blending the style of the old school, or is it also just the idea of that you can really see that they are feeling the music and that, you know, they're going to basically, if somebody plays there are no wrong notes. So if somebody plays a wrong note, they all go there with them. I mean, something like that.
Right. You know, everybody's not going to have the feel, you know, see, you know, because that's why you got like a certain guys would be on top of the game and last a long time, you know, because a lot of guys don't have the feel, you know, and they learn the licks. They learn all New Orleans licks and all that stuff, and they play it well, you know. But the few guys and the few musicians, the few bands that have that feel, those are guys you hear about more. You see, you know, and when you listen to them, you can just hear that it's more than just technical with them. You know, it's about feel. The whole thing about feel, man. Everything, even like Zigaboo, man. Zigaboo just had a feel on the drums, man. You know, just a feel. You see, you know, if he can't play nothing else, if he can't play country or western, you know, if he can't play blues, he got a feel for the funk, man. And it's genuine. You see what I'm trying to say? You know.
But okay, genuine, so let me ask you. This is so important because this is so great, man, to talk to you because, okay, like the cats that eventually, I mean, the meters were beyond in the sense of like, I mean, they absolutely had an impact on all these peeps all over the country that were hearing with the music that they were playing. But but those cats were, you know, I've interviewed Porter, No Santelli. I don't know about Zig. Mm-hmm. Those cats were steeped in jazz. Okay, so they knew jazz, and then eventually there was no word in the lexicon for funk. Okay, that someone you know this.
Yeah.
Like, people say, Bobby would say, let's play something like a funky blues. You know, let's play a funky blues, something like that.
Yeah.
There's no word to say, let's play some funk. Okay, eventually that word came into the lexicon. So now you have cats who are playing funk, but they didn't ever learn jazz. So I mean, that to me is like, do you understand? I mean,
man,
you understand?
You just said something. You're right. You are absolutely right. You know.
So I mean, my point is that Zig was playing. He may not have been playing bebop, but he had a deep bag of jazz, I think, as a foundation before he started playing what he was feeling. Right?
Yeah. Well, Leo did.
Oh, Leo,
George Porter. Now, Art Neville had a feel for R&B always, and like he came up with just a soulful R&B thing, man. Because but Leo definitely was a jazz guitar player, man. You even had a Gibson a 335. You know, like in jazz guitar, and John Porter played behind a lot of jazz guys. He played behind James Rivers back in the days. You know, so all of them had jazz background. I think what happened with that combination is when you put Leo's guitar jazz chops and George Porter chops and Zigaboo with the street beat. You see.
Say again, the street beat. The street beat.
Yeah, he had a street beat.
What? No. Okay, so let's be clear. I know. See, this is so good. So I mean, because in modern day lexicon, it would be very hard to find a radio station that plays street beat music. So that's just like is that just a gumbo beat? I mean, I really want you to, if you can unpack that. This is what it's about. This is what because all those cats were street scholars.
The street beat was the second line music. You know, the stuff you hear.
I dig.
You know, like the second line coming down the street. You know, they got that. But you poop tap poop poop. That's the street beat, you know. And Zigaboo took that beat, you know, and played that on the trap set, you see, you know, and he slowed it down a little bit with that, you know, and with that and Leo's jazz chops, man, you know, like giving them those guitar licks to play, you know, the rhythm, you know, that became the meters, and that was a new kind of funk coming out of New Orleans. You see, you know, that was totally new and different. When those guys started recording, everybody was like, "Wow," you know, and right till today, all the guys you hear that call themselves funk bands are playing or some kind of form of the earlier meters stuff. You know, some play it well, some can't capture it because, like you say, they don't have the feel.
Well, but it's also like you cannot. I mean, you can't transcribe. You can transcribe an Elvin Jones solo or a Zig solo, but it's not going to feel the right way. It's not going to come out the right way.
It's not going to feel the same way. No.
You know, and it's like
it'd be all notes. It'd be just digits.
Exactly.
It'd be notes.
Exactly. You just become a craftsman. It has nothing to do with being a musician. And so
right,
it's like,
right.
I mean, you know, I guess because I'm talking about New York's. Well, for the record, by the way, when I interviewed Leo, I opened up by asking him. I said, "Is it fair to say that you would have easily been able to waltz into the New York studio scene as a jazz guitar player?"
Jazz guitar.
And he said, "Absolutely." Yeah. I mean, you know, absolutely that was the case. But he stayed in his regional hotbed. It was the sound. So, because I'm talking like the New York studio cats and everybody out in California, everyone I talk to, because I all talk to your generation, they say, you know, the meters was just, when we heard that sound, it was completely mind blowing. Do you think that it had to do with the fact that Zig wasn't really coming from a how should I put this, bebop or, you know, straight ahead jazz background? It was more the street.
That's why.
Right.
That's what happened. Yeah, that combination, man. See, you know, that accidental combination. Because I used to hear those guys, man, playing on Bourbon Street, and they were just doing like cover songs, man. You know, you know, they were doing cover songs, you know, like impression songs. They were doing James Brown song and Temptation song, you know. And then all of a sudden, man, they develop this funk thing, man, and that becomes that Sister Strut was developed from a break song that everybody played, a little jazz. Everybody played it on break. You know, it's a little jazz guitar that everybody played before they take a break. And Leo got tired playing that, so he came up with Sister Strut.
Let's just go. I want to. I mean? Well, no, I want to just humor you for a minute. I want to read this because this came from my interview with Leo. He said there was a song called "Hold It," and I would say 7 out of 10 bands would open up their show with that tune. We used to play that tune at
Yeah.
the Ivanhoe in New Orleans.
I'm telling you, yes.
I got
yes.
stuck playing the solo because everyone else was playing the same solo. There was this melody that
Yes.
was going back and forth in my head for maybe 2 or 3 years. I introduced the melody to everybody and said, maybe we can work this out and see if it feels good enough to open our set with.
Wow.
That melody
Wow.
was the melody to Sissy Strut. And he goes
Sissy
on to
Strut,
talk.
yeah,
Unbelievable. So,
yeah.
I mean, really, man, what were you doing parallel to them at that time? Were you with Bobby? Were you? I
was Eddie Bo.
You were with Eddie Bo.
At the same place, the same club.
The Ivanhoe. Oh my God.
They would play earlier, and we would play like I think starting at midnight, 11 o'clock, and we go till daybreak, man. So I was able to come in there, and hear a couple of sets, And plus I was a good friend with Paul and all of them, Zigaboo, and I would hear them, man, I would hear them developing, their style, they would get just to me funkier and funkier, and they came up, yeah, man, and it was Zigaboo. Zigaboo was just street, Yeah, just street beat, man.
Eddie played piano. Who was your drummer?
No, Bobby Williams.
So what was Bobby's? Was he a street drummer too?
Yes, indeed. Man.
Okay, so
yeah.
I want to know. This is so important. So I mean, Eddie Bo, your group. I mean, it was different, but were you also channeling that same? I mean, you picked up the bass in '65. I mean, Porter basically picked up the bass too. I think he played guitar too, but somebody said you played pretty bad guitar, so he started to play bass.
bass,
So I mean, were you? I mean, is it fair to say that what were you guys doing that was the language that you were putting out to the audience when you'd play alongside of him? Was it?
Well,
go ahead.
James Brown was also developing his style,
Right.
James Brown was definitely like influence on me too, and Motown had put the bass out front. You see,
Jamerson.
Yeah, the bass was also any kind of funk came from a bass had to come from Jamerson because there was nothing before that.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? There was nothing before that.
Well, there was there was not. I mean, there was like Bill Black, or he'd play upright with Elvis. That wasn't the same kind of thing. Yeah, Motown was cooking.
This bass was out front, man. I like, what is he doing? I mean, way out front, man. So all bass players, like in my time, wanted to hit something like James, So I played with a lot of force back then, So I was out. I made sure the bass was out front, because I heard that with Motown. So I figured, well, this must be the new thing. Put this bass out front and stomp it, step on it, And so we had a pretty funky little band, We were doing basically the cover songs like everybody else was doing, like cover songs back then. But we had a couple of songs that we wrote, like Boogaloo Mardi Gras, and a few other songs. We probably didn't even name the song, and we just did them on the gig,
Oh no, exactly. Did you know cats like Ed Blackwell and James Black, those drummers?
Oh yeah, man.
Can you talk about those cats? I mean, the rhythm. Again, those cats were playing. I've done like 4 interviews with Ellis Marsalis, and I mean the groove on those records is ferocious, and it is definitely not.
I know, man.
Man. Like, I mean, what did those guys mean to the lexicon of? I don't like the word jazz, but I'll just call it melodic improvisation. But in your mind, how did they stretch the lineage of melodic improvisation, specifically James Black and Blackwell?
What James Black did with music, he showed that you can not stay in a box, not play in a box. A lot of jazz guys, they always good players, but they could be in a box. James Black would play way outside the box all the time. You know what I mean? You know, like all the time. You know, I mean, he can play. He can turn the beat around on you, man. And if you're not counting and concentrating, you'll get lost. He can put the snare on the bass drum pattern, and vice versa. You see, you know, he could do anything he want on drums, and that was the complexity of James Black. You know, he was very, very different. He played outside the box all the time, and that's why a guy like Yusef Lateef wanted him on his session because James could do that, and, you know, and he can write like that too. You know, and that's George Davis, me, and James Black on Hook and Sling.
Excuse me,
That's
Hook and Sling was James.
Yeah.
You wait, and who was George Davis?
Yeah, George Davis, guitar player.
Did he
Me on bass.
Did he wind up going to New York?
New York, yeah.
Oh my
for years,
God, dude!
man.
Because he wound up his use of the wah pedal. I think he was the best wah player I've ever heard in my life. I mean, he was unbelievable. So you, George Davis, and James Black were playing.
James Black and they had it both. Yeah. Hook and Sling.
Hook and Sling. All right, you just basically blew my mind already. I mean, this is out of control. I mean, you know, listen, Paul. I don't know. Can we do part 2 next week? Because we've been cooking here for over an hour here, and
sure,
we got a lot more to talk about. But I'm having a ball with you, man. I honestly think that you guys are honestly maybe the only backstop of a major city left when it comes to regional music. I don't see with full interconnection now. The cities are dying. I mean, you have gentrification. You have the culture being pushed off the streets in Los Angeles, and in New York, and in Chicago. I mean, these places are all of a sudden, quote unquote. You go to Harlem now, and it's all gentrified. You know, and I'm not trying to go back.
Man.
You know, I'm not trying to go into a time warp here. This is not about preservation. This is about promotion because, and one of the few places left that still have the second line bands and the Mardi Gras Indians, and obviously, like you said, some of the younger cats who are authentically trying to reach that apex of the, you know, closer to the source. It's in New Orleans. It's in NOLA. All right, it's in New Orleans. You know, and that to me, to be able to pick the brains of guys that have been on this earth and creating with the original masters a lot longer than we have that's what my show's about, man. So I'm much love to you. It's so great to connect with you, brother.
Jake, it's been a blast, man. We're gonna do a part 2.
Yeah, no, we'll do it. We'll do it. I'm gonna put it. I'll get you a copy of this, and I'll be transcribing our stories and blasting them out all over new media. But yeah, let's do part 2 next week sometime. All right.
Okay, Jake.
Cheers, man. Have a beautiful 4th of July, man.
Okay, you too, man.
Later,
all right.
dude.
Stay
Later.
cool.
Yeah,
Stay cool, bro.
Be cool, man. Later.
All right.
Bye-bye.
All right, bye.
Just another legend here on the Jake Feinberg Show, Mr. Paul Boudreaux, who amazingly enough played on Hook and Sling with James Black and George Davis. I mean, that to me is just some of the most ferocious funk in the world. He also did a ton of work and sang, as we heard, with the drummer Bobby Williams, and played right alongside the cats that were that really defined the funk, New Orleans funk, which was the Meters. And we will be back with Craig Pretzinger on the Jake Feinberg Show right after this.